Welcome back to the online sessions on embedded systems. In the last class, we discussed up to here about the general block diagram of an embedded system. Now, there is a difference between a basic general purpose computer system with a embedded system. Now, what is a basic general purpose computer system we're going to have? The basic general purpose computer system is going to have, like, input device, output device, processor, and memory. This is what the basic components of general purpose computer system. Now when you come to the embedded system, see, it is going to have the processor, it is also going to have the processor same as the earlier one, and it will be having the input devices, it will be having the output interfacing devices, output drivers. So input devices, input interfacing, and driver circuits. Now, apart from that, it's going to have driver circuits. It's going to have some of the output interfacing circuits. It's going to have the parallel ports. Now, apart from that, it's going to have serial communication ports. It's going to have the separate memory internal to the program. That is what called program memory. And to store the data temporarily while the program is getting executed, we normally use the data memory. And you're going to have the power supply units, reset, and oscillator circuits, same system application specific circuits. So application specific circuits are also going to be embedded in the same chip. That means the embedded system is something like a tailored version of the digital system, digital computer system. That means if at all you want to make it customizable, you can change the functionality of the system. That means to some extent you can change some of the hardware components which are going to be working in the system, and some of the hardware components which are there in the system are normally going to make disabled. That means you can disable some of the hardware components working in the system, you can enable some of the components working in the hardware system, so that to some extent you can make the hardware also going to be customizable. And the software which will be running, it will be simply embedded inside this particular hardware, so that once the embedded system is totally made, now this embedded system will be working for a specific application. As I was talking to you, an embedded system is also known as a digital system, which is normally meant to perform a specific application or a specific task, is simply known as an embedded system for us. Okay, now in last class we just emphasized about the various types of embedded systems, such as small scale embedded system. Embedded system are classified into three types. One of them is going to be small scale embedded system. Another one is medium scale embedded systems. Now coming to the small scale embedded system, as it is mentioned, small scale systems, it is used for only 16-bit, 8-bit, or 16-bit microcontrollers. So the processor which we use inside the embedded system is usually going to be a microcontroller. For 80% of tasks, we use a microcontrollers. So any very specific reasons, we're going to use the microprocessors. So if at all you wanted to make the system customizable, then you normally going to use the microprocessor as well along with the microcontroller. But microcontroller as such is known as an embedded system, which we're going to discuss later about the microcontroller. So we have 8051 microcontroller in the syllabus. So we discuss 8051 in detail. This 8051 microcontroller is also known as a embedded system. It is a starting embedded system which is being implemented as a microcontroller. So microcontroller is normally internally going to have so many peripheral devices apart from the processor. Just like an embedded system is going to have timers, interrupt controllers, parallel ports, serial communication ports, okay, separate memory for data, and data memory and program memory, right? So like this, we normally going to have several other internal peripherals in the microcontroller of known as 8051. The basic control is known as 8051, where we are going to use all of them. Now let us discuss about small scale embedded system. Now embedded system is a system which is comprising of microcontroller and all other necessary systems, all of the necessary peripherals needed in the system to perform a specific task. is what called embedded system. So embedded systems, as I mentioned, what is a system? System is nothing but interconnection of many other subsystems to perform a intended task, is basically known as a system. Now coming to embedded systems is also going to be interconnection of many other systems to perform a dedicated functionality, to perform a dedicated task, is simply known as a embedded system for us. So this term called dedicated will be coming into picture when you really emphasize about the embedded system in comparison with the other type of the systems. So embedded systems are meant for dedicated applications. That is what the point which you have to clear in our thoughts, right? The next, let us coming to the classification of embedded systems. They're divided into three types. They're known as small scale embedded systems, large medium scale embedded systems, and large scale embedded systems. So embedded system, as I talked about, is nothing but a system which is normally made in a single chip to perform a dedicated applications, to perform dedicated task, is simply known as a embedded system. Okay. So now these systems are basically designed with a, as it is a small scale, they're designed with a 8-bit or 16-bit microcontrollers. Microcontrollers are preferred than the microprocessors, in the embedded systems. Now the reason why we just came to know when we discuss about the microcontrollers in detail. Okay. So until now we just remember that microcontrollers are preferred than the microprocessors to use in the embedded systems. That means microcontroller is also known as a processor with many other inbuilt embedded hardware as well as software required to perform a specific task is there in the microcontroller, whereas microprocessor it is not. Okay, that is the main difference between these two. Okay, then here they have little hardware and software complexities and involves board level design. Now here it is going to be only board level design. That means board level means what? PCB level design. Once you design an embedded system at a PCB level, it simply comes under the small scale type of the embedded system. So once you design the system and your task will be done, that's it. And it is going to have very little hardware and software complexities. And they can be battery operated. Of course, electronic system means always they are going to be battery operated systems. So embedded system is an electronic system, so therefore it should be battery operated. So they may even be battery operated also. When developing embedded software for this, an editor. Now what kind of how do we develop a software, which will be implemented on the embedded hardware? That will be developed by using an editor, assembler, and even cross assemblers specific to the microcontrollers or processors used. Okay, are the main programming tools. So we use the main programming tools as the editor, assemblers, cross assemblers, and specific to the microcontroller process used for the applications. Then usually C language called as embedded C is used for developing these systems. So embedded C program compilation is done into the assembly, and executable files are then appropriately located in the system memory. Now what we do is, once we develop a software using embedded C, we simply going to burn these executable codes into the system memory for their execution. So the software has to fit within the memory available and keep in view of the need to limit power dissipation when system is running continuously. So one more limitation here is that the power dissipation is obviously is a problem. So here the software has to fit within the memory available and keep in view of the need to limit power dissipation when the system is running continuously. So here the power dissipation should not be really in a more destructive manner. That means the power dissipation is an issue when the system is running continuously, and the power dissipation increases. As the power dissipation increases, the embedded system may get damaged due to excessive heat in the system. So now the software compulsorily has to fit with the limited memory or limited resources available in the microcontroller, because as microcontroller is meant, as embedded system is meant for dedicated applications to perform specific task, it will be having a tailored memory units. It will be having a tailored devices. That means tailored means what? It is simply customizable devices used. That means a very limited memory used, limited hardware is used. Okay, so therefore the software should compulsorily fit into this particular limited hardware. So that means what, if the software is not going to be like that, then obviously you're going to get so many other memory problems here. Therefore it has to be taken care. And one more thing has to be taken care is to limit the power dissipation when the system is running continuously. There should be some mechanism to compensate for the excessive heat in the embedded system when it is running continuously. So when you have all these things, we simply call this as an embedded small scale type of the embedded systems. Then we have another type called a medium scale embedded system. When it comes to medium scale embedded system, they are usually designed with a single or a few 16-bit or 32-bit microcontrollers. So somewhat the capacity, bit capacity has been increased in the case of the embedded systems, and the microcontrollers are going to be of 16-bit or 32-bit. Our DSPs are RISC processors, that is called reduced instruction set computers, will be used to design a medium scale embedded systems. And these also going to both have hardware and software complexities. And medium scale is somewhat a larger version of the small scale type of the embedded system. Therefore, the software and hardware complexities are definitely going to increase in this particular type of the embedded system. So for complex software design, there are following tools. Now here the software design is going to be complex. Therefore, the software tools are also going to be more advanced software tools will be normally used to design such medium scale embedded systems. It is something like, say, to design a Java program, to design multi-threading concepts in Java, right? And to design some server-based applications in Java, we're going to use Eclipse kind of, you know, development environments or some other kinds of the environments to develop the program. Similarly, here also you're going to use a EDE tools. Okay, so development environments has to be used compulsorily here. Okay. Now, so here such is the case here. So these have both hardware and software complexities. For complex software design, there are the following programming tools. Now, what are the tools we're going to use? RTOS, known as real-time operating systems, we're going to use. So what is real-time operating system in comparison with ordinary operating system? Real-time operating system is normally used to perform a perform for dedicated applications, which are time bound, which has to meet the deadlines. So RTOS is an operating system used to perform dedicated, use it for dedicated applications which meets always deadlines, is known as RTOS. Whereas ordinary operating system need not meet the deadlines while the system is been executing the applications. Then other tools are going to be source code engineering tool, simulators. Source code engineering tool means what? You have to type the source code, which will be embedded into the embedded system. Then simulators, debuggers, and integrated development environments called as IDE tools. So you have to use certain integrated development environments tools because the software is going to be bigger, hardware is going to be bigger. Therefore, you have to use the specialized IDE tools. So software tools are also going to provide a solution to hardware complexities. So as the system is going to build or increase in terms of software and hardware, so software should compulsorily solve the or provide solutions to the hardware complexities also. Then as an assembler is of little use as a programming tool here, because everything is done by using IDE tools and all, RTOS operating systems. So we are going to use them in a less proportion. Assemblers are normally used in less proportion here because assemblers are used for very less number of code. But when the code length is increasing, when the hardware is increasing, then the assembler is simply slows down the entire process. Therefore, that is least preferred here. Then these systems may also employ readily available ASSPs and IPs. So that will be coming in the last unit. We discuss about the application specific programs and all for various functions. Say for business, for a bus interfacing, encryption, deciphering, discrete cosine transformation and inverse transformation, we're going to use this. And TCP/IP protocol stack and network connection functions, we're going to use this SSP and IP specialized processors. The next one is going to be called as sophisticated embedded systems. Now, what do you mean by these sophisticated embedded systems? Sophisticated systems have enormous hardware and software complexities. That means the length of the hardware and length of the software is simply going to increase than the medium scale in sophisticated embedded systems, and may need scalable processors or configurable processors and programmable logic arrays. Now, what is embedded system? Once if you normally design an embedded system hardware, it is going to be fixed. It will be fixed for a specific application up to medium scale. Now, there are situations where your hardware should be reconfigurable for performing some other specific applications other than what it was performing earlier. So therefore, the hardware has to be a reconfigurable hardware, and the processors which we are going to use to process the signals are going to be scalable processors. So that means here it is going to be, once again, you're going to make the embedded system put together as a customizable embedded system. That means once you design an embedded system for a particular task, the same system, without changing, without removing the hardware, you can simply make use of the same existing hardware for different applications by simply changing the software embedded into it. Thereby, we make the system going to be a sophisticated embedded system. Sophisticated means what? A more tailored version of the embedded system is called a sophisticated embedded system. So therefore, this is what more advanced kind of the embedded systems which we normally going to have. Say for example, Chandrayaan 2, Indian space center has has tried earlier to put a Vikram lander on the moon, and they have failed. But what was that particular project actually? The Vikram lander 2 internally is going to have an embedded system, and the software and the hardware inside the embedded system will be reconfigurable, or has to be reconfigurable hardware systems has to be incorporated into it. That means if required, the functionality provided by the hardware for a given software will be changing based on the necessities. That is what the software becomes, the hardware becomes a sophisticated hardware embedded systems. Okay, so the best example is Vikram lander. So they are used for cutting edge applications. Okay, like very advanced robotic applications that need hardware and software co-design and integration in the final system. Now what happens here is the hardware and software has to be designed parallelly. Before sophisticated embedded systems, up to medium scale embedded systems, first hardware will be implemented, then on the hardware we are going to embed the software. Now coming to the sophisticated embedded systems, both hardware and software has to be designed parallelly. Therefore, it comes under co-design, hardware, software, co-design. That means you have to manage with the complexities of the hardware and software parallelly at the time of design itself. So this is what the complexity we have in the sophisticated systems. And integration in the final systems. So, and next is what the hardware and software design should go hand in hand. That is parallel. They should be performed. Therefore, we simply say that it needs hardware and software co-design and integration in the final system. Now, all these are the challenging tasks. However, they are constrained by the processing speeds available in the hardware units. So one limitation with their hardware units, as I said, it is a hardware because it is going to have the limited functionalities every hardware. So the software should be compulsorily go at a speed which is being hindered by the hardware units. That is what the problem which you're going to have. So certain software functions such as encryption and deciphering algorithms, discrete cosine transformations, inverse cosine transformation algorithms, TCP/IP protocol stacking, and network driver functionalities are implemented in the hardware to obtain additional speeds by saving time. So all these are going to happen in the customizable limits. Transformation techniques sometimes have to change. Ciphering, deciphering, some techniques, protocols used sometimes have to change. And the protocol, TCP protocol stack also sometimes have to change. So all this has to be customized. Okay, so that really can be done by using these sophisticated embedded systems. So development tools for these systems may not be readily available at a reasonable cost or may not be available at all. See here, the system, the development tools used to develop such sophisticated embedded systems are not easy, and they are very costly, and they are not readily available also, and they cannot be readily available also, because it has to be designed based on the appropriate applications, very complex applications such as Vikram lander application, right? So this is a more complex type of the embedded systems, right? So in some cases, a compiler or retargetable compiler might have to be developed for these cases. See the complexities here. In the sophisticated embedded systems, we are continuously going to use a cross compilers. We are going to use a retargetable compilers might have to be developed for these applications. Retargetable cross compilers or retargetable compilers. Cross compiler means what? One type to another type. When input uh, the, the source code to the microcontroller or a microprocessor and the output it produces always going to change in the case of the cross compilers. So that is what basically a cross compiler we mean by saying. Say for example, if we take a C compiler, the input of the C compiler is going to be .c file. The output of C compiler is going to be .exe file always. Now instead of exe file, we may want some other file with extension .obj, with extension .fsv. Okay, like that, any other object file it may generate. That means the target system is going to change continuously. Based on the target system, the output file also should change. That means the format of the output file is also going to change. Say simple example, one more I can we can think in terms of our Microsoft applications. Say some people may be knowing, maybe reading the file. Some people may be having a notepad as editor. Now the same notepad message has been transmitted by the source computer to a destination computer. But unfortunately, the destination computer is not having a notepad. It has got a Microsoft Office. Now, what will happen now? The data at the receiver section has to be converted from binary into the Microsoft Office related compatible program. It should be compatible to the Microsoft Office, and it should be converted accordingly. So that there comes the cross compilation. There comes a cross compilation. It need not be always executable, right? And the source to that particular system to the receiver is also going to change sometimes. Instead of a binary file, it may get a hexadecimal file. It may get a video file. It may get an audio file, and the output is also going to change based on the target system. So these are all the complexities which we normally going to have over there. Okay, so this is what sophisticated kind of the embedded systems. And next is skills required for a design engineer to design an embedded system. So as we discussed about three types of systems, like small scale, embedded system, medium scale and sophisticated embedded systems. And the design engineer needs certain skills. He needs certain skills to develop a embedded system at these various levels. So first level is a small scale embedded system. What are the skills he require? See, this is the problem in designing the electronic system. So an embedded system is purely an electronic system, and we embed software into that particular embedded system to perform a specific task or a dedicated application is called embedded system. We already know that. Now, since you have, that means you will be programming directly with the hardware, more or less you will be programming with the hardware. This is what is the important thing. So whenever you're going to deal with the hardware, you should know the internals of the hardware compulsorily. That means you should know the architecture of the system. It is something like a doctor. Whenever a doctor is going to treat a patient, the doctor should know the internal hardware of the human body, human system, human body system. So if he knows that, then only he can able to really treat the patient in a correct manner. Otherwise, it's not going to be correct. Similarly, here also, to design or to program embedded system to give a medicine to the human body, doctor should know its entire models, entire subcomponents, entire architecture. He should know everything. Okay, if he knows everything, then only he can able to give a proper medicine. Similarly, embedded system also, we are directly programming the hardware here in the case of embedded systems. This is what we have to keep in mind. So whenever we are dealing with directly hardware, programming hardware directly, definitely you should know the internals of the hardware. Then only you can able to really write a program for the embedded systems. This is what the problem. Even though you use a high level language, but that high level language cannot be fully high level language. I may call it as a semi high level language. For 50% you should know programming skills, 50% you should know the hardware of the underlying embedded system. Then only you can able to write a effective and efficient program. Otherwise, you cannot write. So in that perspective, what are the skills needed in the individual or in a team in developing the small scale system, small scale embedded system? So you should have a full understanding of the microcontrollers with the basic knowledge of computer architecture. So as I was talking to you, what is the computer architecture? It is the interconnection of the various peripherals with the processor is known as the architecture. We have two types of computer architectures, Von-Neumann architecture and Harvard architecture. So now that is why full understanding of microcontrollers with the basic knowledge of computer architecture is required, in which architecture we normally going to design the hardware or connect the hardware. That is an issue. Then digital electronic design you should know. Okay, that means it is going to be something like DCN subject, digital electronic design, called as something like STLD subject, DSD subject, digital system design. So you should know the digital system design concepts, and you should know some part of hardware engineering also. Okay, so to little bit, you know, you should know the hardware engineering, and you should know the concepts of data communications, how we transmit or exchange information between two electronic devices. That is called data communications. You should know that part also. Then you should know the control engineering, because in embedded systems, always we have to control the various peripherals connected in the embedded system. So you should know some part of control engineering also, or control system engineering also. You should know a little bit about motors, actuators, sensors, and measurements also. That means this subject is simply linked to many other subjects, because embedded system is what? Anything can be embedded in the embedded system. Anything can be interfaced with the embedded system. Therefore, embedded system is going to be part and parcel of the various fields of engineering. When you talk about chemical engineering, when you talk about production engineering, when you talk about computer science engineering, when you talk about IoT, when you talk about AI, right? You name any other, any system. Okay. So you talk about automobile engineering. So anything you normally talk about, there comes the picture of embedded systems, because everywhere we are looking for sophistications, we are looking for automations. So wherever we look for sophistications, wherever we look for automations, there comes into the embedded systems. So therefore, embedded system as such is a very bigger unit, very bigger kind of a place. It all depends on the application that you have to think about the embedded systems. Okay. So therefore, you should have knowledge of motors, actuators, sensor, measurements, measuring units, analog situations, all these things. So some examples have been quoted here. As an example sake, we can just think of the control engineering knowledge will be needed for design of control systems. And analog electronic design knowledge will be needed when designing the systems designer who already has a good knowledge of the processor microcontrollers to be used. So the next here, basic aspects of following topics will be described are necessary to design. What are the basic concepts we need to understand to finally come up with the embedded system? Now in the syllabus, what we have is we have only theoretical part. We are not designing fully an embedded system in the theory part. So therefore, we just have to understand about the concepts. So the we need to have the concept of microprocessors, microcontrollers, computer architecture organization, memories, memory allocations, interfacing the memories, burning of the software, use of decoders and demultiplexers, direct memory access concepts, ports, device drivers in assembly, all these simple and sophisticated buses, timers, interrupt service mechanisms, C programming elements, memory organization, selection of hardware and microcontrollers. So what hardware has to be used, how much memory has to be used, what type of controller is normally preferred for an application is also a matter for us. And use of the in-circuit emulators. We discuss about emulators in detail, and cross assemblers and testing equipments, debugging the software and hardware bugs by using the test vectors. So you should understand about debugging of software and hardware bugs. There will be some errors in the hardware, there will be some errors in the software that has to be tested compulsorily before you normally release the embedded system onto the market. So therefore, all these things are necessary: cross assemblers, testing equipments, debugging the software and hardware bugs by using the test vectors, basic knowledge in other areas like data communications, control engineering, monitors, actuators, sensors, measurements, analog electronic circuit design, all these are really required. So all these basics which are there in this are normally required to design a full-fledged embedded system and release and will be released in the market. Then obviously skills required for the medium scale. Now, when it comes to the medium scale, what happens is latency comes into picture, time criticality comes into picture, because as the system uh, components are going to increase, obviously software used is also going to increase. When these two are really going to increase, obviously complexity really increases. So therefore, the programmer should aware of the embedded C program, should aware of RTOS programming, should aware of program modeling, should have program modeling skills, and should have a knowledge on medium scale embedded systems, and knowledge of the following are also going to become so critical. What are they? You should understand what is task, what is time scheduling, task scheduling by RTOS, what is cooperative and preemptive scheduling. See, these are the concepts comes into picture when time boundary, time limitations becomes the part and parcel of the concepts now. So we need to know inter-process communications. We need to know about shared data problems. We need to know about the programming, the critical sections, reentrant functions, And you have to use the semaphores, mailboxes, how to use semaphores, mailboxes and pipelines, queues, sockets, pipes, handling of interrupt latencies, and meeting task deadlines. So you have to meet the deadlines compulsorily in embedded systems. And in meeting deadlines, what about the time latency? How do we manage with the time latency is also going to matter for us. Okay, so these are all the some of the skills which are required to program the embedded C in a medium scale, using embedded C in a medium scale for embedded systems. Okay, then sophisticated systems, definitely team should compulsorily need to know about co-design and solve the high level complexities and hardware system design concepts. The next embedded system hardware engineer should have a full skills in the hardware units and basic knowledge of the C, RTOS and other programming tools. Compulsorily is going to write a program onto the C language. Using C language, you should know C language, and you're going to use the functions given in the RTOS, built-in functions given in the RTOS. You should know RTOS, and other knowledge of the C also is required. That means to interface this um, microcontroller system to the outside world, we need to have some more knowledge about the embedded C programming language. RTOS and other programming tools is required, and a final optimum design solution is then obtained by the system integration. So these are the skills which are required for various types of the embedded systems. Now, once you design embedded system, what is that you're going to have? See, for example, you got the hardware, you have designed the hardware. After you design the hardware, if it is imagine going to be a medium scale or a small scale, whatever it is. So software is available now, which has been implemented by using the software design tools called as machine specific assembly language program is available, that is given to the machine, that is given to the assembler is going to convert this into machine codes for the programs at various addresses. Then we're going to use some library functions needed here using linker. Then this is normally going to produce bytes for the linked programs. And how do we execute these programs based on these particular programs known as the rules and regulations to perform the task is implemented here. Now what happens is this bytes for linked program. That means we normally going to get the .obj file by using linker files, and after the conversion from assembler to the .obj file, and assembly code is given, and these bytes for linked programs are normally used to link the entire program. Say for example, simple example I can take in terms of the C language. In C language we have a printf and scanf, and this printf and scanf has to be linked from the library. Similarly here also such kind of program constructs will be linked with the library, and the program length is normally going to increase. After that, this is given to the this is normally supplied to get stored in the memory. They'll go to get stored in the memory at various addresses. Then next is given to the program burner. So that means now once it is totally done, then this program which is in machine cores is simply dumped into the ROM area. ROM is known as read only memory. This is the difference between the read only memory in the microcontroller or embedded system and in the microprocessing unit. In the case of the microcontroller, the ROM always going to contain the instructions needed to execute the program. The instructions needed to execute the program. That is what they are. And finally, once after you dump this machine code into this using burner, then we normally finally going to get embedded system, total embedded system, which is containing software to perform a specific task. This is called the final embedded system we normally going to get. So these are all the various basic concepts which we have regarding the embedded systems. Okay, so thank you very much for today's session.